Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. I meant to post a video in April, but I had a show and then I got the flu, so I'm just starting to feel a little bit better now, which I'm sipping lots of tea to help my throat. So if I lose my voice suddenly, that's the reason why. In today's video, I wanted to share a little bit about inspiration. So what inspires us? What gets us motivated to start a new project? And I think every once in a while, everyone gets stuck and sort of scrambles for ideas of what to do next. And so what I did for this last project was I took a little walk down memory lane. My mom has passed now a few years, but I was starting to think of a trip that my mom took me on to California when I was a teenager. And it was kind of a memorable trip. But I was very deeply affected by the landscape, and I grew up in the country, so I'm very in touch with nature, and I often get very inspired by nature. So what really struck me about the California coastline was just its rugged beauty. And I fell in love with cypress trees. I just loved the way they, sometimes, near the ocean where it can be just so windy and, the waves crashing onto the shore, and how the cypress trees seem to be shaped by the weather. And so my inspiration came from those cypress trees. And I thought, how can I sort of come at it with curiosity, playfulness, an expressionistic kind of quality. And of course, as a mixed media artist, I want to bring in all types of different media to make it interesting. So in this clip, you'll see parts of the process. I don't think I filmed the whole thing, but sort of little bits and pieces of different things that I brought in. So I'll go through that with you, and some of the little cool little techniques that I used that I've fallen in love with, and they were sort of developed. These techniques were developed when I was playing around with the fabric saturation technique. So really watered down acrylic paints, watered down not with water but with airbrush medium to make sure that they don't lose their stability. Anyway, so I'll go through those. We'll have a look at them. It's a series of 2 paintings, and then I'll take you through some of the process that was involved, and I'll also jump in and maybe share some of the funny stories about things that happened on my trip with my mom to California. So let's jump in. So here are those 2 pieces again. I've named them shaped by the wind and leaning into the light. So I'll just go in and show you a little bit of the close-ups. So this part up here is gel prints, which I've worked on. So this is all an acrylic background, and then the water was done with that watered down acrylic that I've put in these squeeze bottles to get this really fun sort of effect in the water. And then I've added in here, so kind of hard to see, but there's a lot of texture in the bark of the tree. So I used modeling paste there. And then the bottom, the bottom of this, which sort of represents the rocky coastline. This was, again, that water, that fabric saturation technique. So here's a little bit of a close-up of the bark. So here I'm just laying down some matte medium. The green on the top of the piece is going to eventually, for the most part, disappear. So much the way artists do an underpainting. So for me, I really like to use paper as an underpainting. So I've got some paper down at the top, and then I'm just putting into place the this piece of paper that was created using the fabric saturation technique. I have another video about that technique if you want to check it out on my channel. So you can see here, I sort of jumped ahead. We've got, I've got the papers at the bottom, which represents the rocky coastline, and I've got gel prints starting to create the shape of the cypress trees. And then here I'm going in with mostly Posca pens. I think I use Posca pens. I've also used coloring pencils and all types of things. Just adding some touches to here. I've added some shadowy places and adding some highlights in different areas. And so this actual paper that's meant to represent the rocky coastline actually reminds me of a funny thing that happened when we were in California. I borrowed a bathing suit from my mom, and I've always loved just sitting out in the sun. And the bathing suit that I borrowed from my mom was a crocheted bathing suit. And it kind of reminds me of the pattern of this, of what's supposed to be the rocks. But what happened was I spent the afternoon in the sun. Of course, as a teenager, a little bit oblivious as to the importance of sunscreen, especially in California. And when I got home and removed the bathing suit, I realized that I had sunburnt through the crocheted pattern, and my skin looked like the pattern on a giraffe. So it was very funny, very comical. My mom and I both got a good chuckle out of that. My giraffe tan, my giraffe print tan. So I sort of missed out here on filming the part where I'm doing the painting of the water, but I do touch it up later in the video. So you'll get to see that part of it. I think I sort of messed around with the markers quite a bit until I was happy with what I was aiming for, I guess. And then here you can see me, I've placed these transparencies over the top. And this is basically just to do sort of a trial run of how I want the tree's shape to be. So the trunk of the tree. And I remember them being sort of gnarled and curved and bent and really had interesting shapes. So I was just sort of testing out what kind of shape I wanted the trunks of the trees to be. And then here I'm just going in with, I've got some paint in a squeeze bottle, not as fluid as what I use for the water, just to get a quick outline of the tree trunk and the root system. And the fascinating thing about that root system is that some of the roots grow through the rocks into the soil beneath, but a lot of the roots are sort of creeping along the rock surfaces and giving them a really neat look. So here I've gone in with some modeling paste and I'm sort of dragging a kebab skewer to get that shape. And then once that's dry, I'm coming in and starting to paint the trunk of the tree and the branches. So the trees themselves were primarily gray, but then with different areas of where the bark has sort of peeled away, there's this wonderful earthy orange tone. So sort of getting the, I guess, the underpainting of that, and then coming in after with some different paints. I actually used some silver metallic paint on the trunk of the tree. I love the way it sort of popped and glistened in the light when the light reflected. So coming in now with to work on the background and start to cut into the shapes, creating the shapes of the cypress trees. Another funny thing that happened while I was on vacation there with my mom is I thought, well, it'd be fun to do some girl bonding. So we decided that we would put my hair in curlers. I thought it would be fun. And I have very fine hair. And we had gotten these tiny little curlers. And I slept overnight with these curlers in my hair. And the next day when we took them out, my hair was dry. And then when we brushed it out, I had this enormous afro. It was really quite funny. Huge, huge afro. And because we were sort of rushing to go out, I had to go out with my hair like that. So I happened to have a hat, luckily for me. And I think spent the whole day wearing that hat because I was, as a teenager, mortified that my hair looked like this. I have a picture of that somewhere. I'll have to dig it up. Sort of deciding what color I want the sky to be. So I'm coming in with shades of pink and gray and blue. But you can see on the actual piece that I'm working on there, if you look into the water, you can see a little bit of the paper that was collaged in the background. So when I use collage paper as an underpainting, sometimes some of it disappears and some of it is visible. one of my favorite memories of my time with my mom was sort of rock hopping along the coastline, exploring the tide pools. And if we were lucky enough, we would see some otters playing in the surf and swimming along in the water and through the seaweed, popping their little heads up. So here you can see I went in a little bit there with the squeeze bottles, adding some more definition to the water. So that technique with the squeeze bottles is really nice because it kind of gives a watercolor effect. There's actually a famous cypress tree called the Monterey cypress that's been standing in its place for many, many years. I don't know the whole history of it, but really amazing, amazing trees. And here I've decided to add another piece. It was feeling a little sparse, so I went in with some more of the gel print paper to add another section to the tree and adding in branches connecting it. Using Posca pens again to get more definition, cutting in around to get more of the sort of evergreen shapes of the cypress tree. Just here zooming in a little bit on the finished pieces, having a look at some of the detail. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspires you in some way to try new things. I welcome any questions and appreciate any comments. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.